Hello, everyone. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Jayson.
And we just got finished seeing The Batman. We were going to shoot a real quick how we felt about right in the parking lot, like the video we shot just before we went into the theater, but Jayson was very thirsty and it's very late at night right now, so we decided to go ahead and come home first and shoot this. Jayson and I haven't talked at all about what we think of this movie. We haven't talked out any aspects of it or anything, so I don't totally know what Jayson's thinking and he doesn't totally know what I'm thinking. Tonight we're not going to do a traditional how we felt about, because we're doing a spoiler cast on Sunday. I haven't done this in a long time, Jayson, doing a non-spoiler video and then a couple days later doing a full-on spoiler video. I used to do that with all kinds of superhero stuff.
Yeah, I remember, I did that a lot with you.
This is kind of the biggest superhero movie of the year, and obviously a big deal for me, given that we're finally getting back to solo Batman again, and given how I, along with a lot of people, weren't real happy with what we did with The Last Incarnation, and so I was really anticipating this and excited about it, especially the last few weeks. I've been in a real Batman mood and really anticipating this and hoping that it would blow up all of my expectations, and now we've seen it. So we're going to do a really vague walking out immediate first impressions live cast for you. We've got a few people here. We're not going to talk for too long, but we've been live streaming most things lately, and we figured if anybody happened to be around and wanted to see this while we were shooting it, we might as well go ahead and get it up so that and also so that it'll be there immediately after we finish. We got to see this a day early, and so we thought you guys might like to get our just immediate first impressions. Jayson, why don't you go first? Can you give us kind of your just immediate thoughts walking out, and if you can think of some things, again, we haven't had any time to process it all, give us a best thing, worst thing, and a sign flip like we usually do for how we felt about. Not going to get into even synopsis or anything, because I don't want to give away anything with this movie. I'm going to keep things real broad here, and if you guys have any questions you want to ask about certain aspects with this movie in the short time allotted, we're not going to broadcast more than 15 or 20 minutes, feel free to put those in, but please don't spoil anything for anybody else, and keep them real, again, kind of generalized and generic. All right, Jayson, go ahead.
Okay, so this was a very different movie. It's kind of what I expected it to be, where it wasn't...
It's very different, but it's what you expected?
Yeah, well, it's different than the other Batman, attempts at Batman.
Yeah.
A live-action Batman. But that's kind of what I expected it to be, because you kept saying, it's gonna be like this from the 80s or 90s, and I'm like, okay, I've seen, I've only read, a couple issues from that, so, I was kind of like, okay, is this going to be super gritty and super, hard, which...
Yeah, was it?
Yeah. And it was really funny. It was actually kind of funny whenever someone would say a bad word, because they would just randomly do it, and I was like, I was not expecting that.
Did you feel as though you were in an R-rated film?
Yeah.
Would you classify this as hard PG-13?
Yeah.
Are you surprised it even got away with that rating? Is that kind of where you're at on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't have... Okay, it's not... It kind of just has a few bad words in it, and it doesn't have that many...
But how rough and tumble was it? How violent did you find it?
Not very.
Not very?
I mean, it had a bunch of, Batman beating up stuff. But it didn't have as much stuff as BVS.
But, subject matter-wise and stuff, did you find it really, relentless and oppressive and not any fun? Was it that kind of thing? Or did you find it entertaining? Was it fun to watch?
I mean, it was very sad. It was a very sad movie.
Sure.
But, I mean, there were times with, the Riddler riddles where I kind of felt like I was kind of there on the case with Batman.
Yeah.
If you can kind of, yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
I very much felt the tone of, like, oh, he's going through this, like, moment where it's super sad, and then, oh, we're on the chase.
Did you appreciate that it was a noirish detective thing?
Yeah.
Some people,
That's kind of what I wanted.
some people are saying that this movie feels like Batman the Animated Series finally put on screen. Do you agree with that?
No.
No. Okay,
I
interesting.
don't. It.
Just because
I don't
it's
know
kind of more
what-
foreboding than that, or because if you think about it, plot-wise, especially, I can totally see where people might be coming from with that,
Okay.
or just the way it's
a little
plotted,
bit,
right?
But it's way scarier. And,
Sure.
like,
Was it too
yeah,
scary?
Like, the subject matter is.
Well, of
just
course, yeah.
not
But
even-
but a lot of that's just about what you can do in early '90s television, right? Like,
Yeah. But
like if Bruce Timm and
didn't-
Dini and those guys had been able to do some of that, they would have.
it didn't feel like that for me. I did not think of that at all when I
Okay,
when I
interesting.
watched it. But
Did you feel like did you feel like it was too rough around the edges, and not violence wise or whatever, but just like tonally, was it your sensibilities or not? Like you said, you thought it was kind of entertaining, but did you feel like it was too adult of a movie?
at some parts.
I guess
There
I'm
was-
trying to feel you out here because while we were watching it, I could not get a read on how you were enjoying it.
Well, that's because it was pretty boring.
Oh.
Like the first hour.
Oh,
There
really?
was, like,
you
nothing
you weren't into it.
happening.
Okay, interesting. Okay, give me a best thing, worst thing.
Okay. Best thing is I like all of the modern day stuff, where all of the
Tech and stuff?
yeah,
Is that what you mean?
all of the phones and the screen, the flat screen TVs and stuff that they use.
I mean, do you feel like it still has that general Batman timeless thing where it doesn't feel like, because of course it's heightened and it's more stylized than any Batman thing we've ever had,
Yeah.
save sort of BVS in a way, but you know what I mean.
But I was-
but it's got, but it is, it does have a lot of modern tech, and Batman does have some kind of futuristic tech to some
Yeah.
degree.
But I was not expecting I'm not gonna get into it at all.
Yeah.
But some of the stuff that they do with phones and stuff gets hilarious. And
Oh, internet stuff. I know just what you're talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah, yeah.
and Riddler is I don't know if I like him. He's
Is that a worse thing, or?
I think I'm gonna put it as my worst thing because
Wow.
I don't know what I can't
Just
really
the aesthetic of it, or the performance, or the motivation, or
he's kind of just all over the place.
Okay.
He's really scary, and then he's really
but when you say all over the place, he does make sense, right?
yeah, he makes sense, but sometimes he doesn't make sense
Oh, okay.
because
I don't know what he's talking about.
sometimes he's really scary, and then sometimes he's really funny, and then sometimes
But there's reasons for
He's-
all of that, right?
yeah, but
without getting into detail, of course.
I don't know. He's kind of. I can't really he makes sense, but he doesn't make sense in my brain.
Well, why don't you go ahead and flip your sign?
Okay.
Okay, so you're flipping
Yes.
green. So you are feeling it.
Yes.
Is it a resounding green, or is it it's fine, it's good enough to flip it green, but I didn't love it? And could you put this in? I don't mean rank every Batman movie, but could you kind of put this in a ranking kind of where does it fall for you?
Yeah, that's what I
With
was
other
gonna
Batman
do.
things. Is it the best Batman movie now for you?
No.
Oh, interesting.
It's
Okay.
not. It's very different. It's not. For me, when I think of Batman, do not think at all of this kind of stuff.
Okay.
So I'm kind of just not used to it.
Sure.
I felt like
need to make you read more.
I feel like if I gave it another watch, I would like all of like the Riddler stuff better and stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Okay, is it my turn?
Yeah. Well, okay. So
Sure, go ahead.
I feel like okay, I think it's better than Dark Knight because it's not Dark Knight, Begins. I already like Dark Knight better than Begins, but I do like Dark Knight better than the Batman.
Okay, sure,
So,
that's fair.
Yeah, because this movie is more like the last 2 years. Not the last 2 years, but it's been 2 years since he first started. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
this is year 2.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
That phrase is even
Begins
used.
like year 1. So it's kind of it. To me, it's not really Batman. Like Batman Begins,
Right.
Because it's just it's like his beginning.
Well, we don't want to go too long tonight, so let me go ahead and get into my stuff if that's cool.
Yeah.
So you flipped green.
Yes.
So the best way I can describe this movie, Jayson, is authentic and elegant. This is a gorgeous movie. Nearly every frame I'm wanting to take a still shot and put on my wall. Cinematography is just brilliant in this, and I already loved Matt Reeves as a director, and I was excited based on the Planet of the Apes movies when he got Batman. Did not disappoint with any of that. Authentic in the sense that it is comic book Batman through and through, just like... And when I say comic book Batman, obviously there's a lot of different iterations and stuff, but the kind of traditional, classical, more brutish, dark, noirish Batman without making him wholly unsympathetic. And it's a movie that certainly skirts that line, and without giving away anything, is to some degree kind of another one of those the character you know kinds of movies. I think one of the best examples of that, in the same way that Begins is one of the best examples of a superhero origin ever put on screen. But it's just what I was hoping it would be as far as being a straight out of the books that I love, for the most part, kind of Batman. When people are comparing it to animated series, Jayson, I thought this was everything. It was everything. Mm-hmm. I was seeing every iteration of Batman I know all over this thing, and the thing that I'm kind of most in awe about with it is how all of those things are blended to create something that's very familiar to me, but also really fresh and really original. This is, Reeves has an absolute take on this character, but it's also quintessential. It's also definitive. It's the Batman movie I didn't know I needed. I mean, there's a part of me that always wanted to see something like Batman the Animated Series, or the No Man's Land Batman or something put on screen, but I also loved Nolan's vision for it so much that, I don't want to say I settled, because that's not fair to Nolan. I still think that his first 2 movies are brilliant and genius, for the most part. But he, like I talked about with that video we made earlier, had a different take on that character, where in some ways his motivations were kind of flipped from what I love about this character, and what those movies have to say about fear as a motivator and all of that is wonderful. And at that, in an elemental way, it's at the core of that character. And that first movie is certainly a character piece. And this is too, but this is through and through the Batman that I know that sees himself as Batman first. And like I said, it's everything put into a blender. It's the best example. First of all, I think it's maybe the best example I've ever seen of comic book adaptation that, on at least the big screen, that isn't just going to one particular story and putting it on the screen. In certain ways, there are other wonderful examples of that, Watchmen and some other things, where you pretty much, at least until the third act with that, took what was there on the page and put it on the screen. But this isn't, or like Sin City, this isn't adapting a specific story. It's hobbling together pieces from all over the place. And in a way, Jason, it doesn't even watch like adaptation to me. It's like it transcends medium because it loves film, but it also loves comics. And there are lots of comic book movies that I've reviewed where I've kind of given certain things a pass because, well, you just don't do that in movies. When you're trying to adapt from a comic to the big screen, that's got different sensibilities, the pacing is different, etc., etc. This kind of blows all that out of the water for me. It watches like a graphic novel that if somebody read it, you'd say, well, you can't really put that on the big screen. And that's the thing that was most impressive about it for me. So best thing, worst thing, I guess. There's so much, right? Like, Pattinson's performance is wonderful. I don't know that I've ever watched a guy give a frowny face during an entire performance and still at the end of the day sympathized with him and cared about him. That was really impressive. And yeah, his Batman voice is good, and he certainly embodies the character. But it's kind of a risk to watch a Batman that's floundering through much of the movie, and I still care what happens to him, and I still feel like he's really that character. He has a wonderful character arc in this. I should also say that thematically, it's about all kinds of things that Batman is very often about that we've dealt with on the big screen before, but we put them all together and made one really cohesive and coherent story out of it. It's a really good mystery, and the mystery is weird because there are things about it that should be really super obvious that I didn't call, but felt like at the end of it I should have. And I don't think that's on me. I think the movie was just really good at taking me in all the wrong directions. It's great for that. I don't think it's giving away too much by saying it's a pretty decent romance. I think Selena Kyle has really good chemistry with their Batman. But yeah, so best thing, like I said, I have to give it to cinematography at the end of the day, I guess. And then worst thing is hard because it kind of, first viewing, it kind of read Night Perfection to me. I'm sure on multiple viewings I'll pick at it and find things, but that's I want to think that's different. Like I was so impressed with a 3-hour runtime that doesn't feel like a 3-hour runtime. Like you said, you were bored. I did not have that. I felt like this took exactly the time it took to really tell this story. It didn't feel like any frame or scene was wasted or unnecessary. I kind of needed to go to the bathroom through the last half of this movie, and I was not going to do that because there was no leaving. Jayson had to get up a couple of times, but. So you missed a couple of things here and there that I had to tell you about when you came back, but it didn't feel like a thing I could leave. And I guess that kind of tells you the different experiences we were having, because Jayson felt like he could get up, and I did not have that. I was just enraptured through this entire thing. I have some of the reservations about Riddler that you do, but it's all aesthetic for me, and that's all I'll say about that. I mean, I was considering also maybe putting that in the worst category.
That's kind of what I was saying, is like aesthetic, where I don't really know, like I don't know how he's like in the comics, and like and there's probably a bunch of different versions of him.
There are, and we're cribbing from some modern stories real hard with this, but I'm not gonna get into that anymore than that. So yeah, obviously, really hard green sign flip. This is just first viewing, walking out of the theater. I don't want to get hyperbolic or anything, but this was made so much for me. Like I kind of can't help the sort of giddy goosebumps sort of thing I'm having with it right now. It's maybe the best piece of superhero media I've seen in 5 or 6 years, at least. Like, I've called the first season of Daredevil on Netflix the best piece of superhero media, of extra media, apart from comics, ever. I think there's a chance that this is on that level. On just one viewing. There's a lot to unpack with that story. And I'm not going to get into any analysis right now, of course. We're already at 20 minutes, and I said we'd make this short. And also, I'm going to be doing a spoiler cast on Sunday, so we'll get into some of that stuff here and there with that. But a lot to process, and it's a real thoughtful and thought-provoking piece. And what I was going to say earlier is it's also the best example, maybe ever, of a love letter to a property that isn't just fan service the movie and isn't pandery about it. We're just telling a story with this, but in doing that, it packs in all of these really fun Easter eggs and references and stuff that just all feel like they're of a piece. And if you know that stuff, it creates another layer. And if you don't, it's just wonderful world building for this world. A lot of things are coming to me right now that I can't talk about, but like, it's one of those movies that doesn't hold your hand and that you can appreciate on a lot of different levels. And so if you just want a thrill ride kind of movie, I mean, certainly this is a like talky enough movie that there could be sections that you're not really enthralled with, like Jayson had. And I'm not saying that you're superficial for that. You might have just not been really into the story. But it's also some of the best action I've seen in anything in a long time. I think encroaching on John Wick territory. Just the level of some of the choreography and stuff. One of the best car chases I've seen in a long time. But anyway, I could just sit here and gush all night long. Let's just real quick see if there's any questions that we should answer before we finish. People are being real tight-lipped and not putting too much in the comments right now, regardless of how many viewers we have right now. So I really appreciate that, guys. Thanks. But there are a few. Bob the Hun, without spoilers, could Robin exist in the world? My answer to that is anything could exist in this world. Absolutely anything.
I saw a question, and
but real quick, do you agree with that? Does this feel like a heightened enough Batman universe that you could put anything in it?
Maybe.
Because I'm telling you,
if you did it right.
I was hoping, and I said this earlier, I was hoping walking out of this that I would feel like this is where the DCEU should have started, and I appreciate that Matt Reeves doesn't seem that interested in doing a lot of extra Batman stuff with his Batman movies, but man, this is the kind of thing that we should have started with, absolutely. Give it a few years, don't immediately, jump off of Dark Knight Rises, popularity and hype and feel like you have to just bring in the same old guard and try to kind of crib Nolan, do Nolan again with your Superman. Like, I want a Superman movie now that is as much comic book Superman as this is comic book Batman, by the way. But anyway, I just say that to say, yes, I think anything could exist in this. I know Pattinson really wants to see Robin happen. I'll say, I think it would maybe have to be a while. I wouldn't do it in the next movie, depending on how much time passes or whatever, but...
Oh, what if they do Clock King in that world? That would be really good.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could take any pseudo-silly Batman villain in this and spin it with a more street-level motivation and make him or her kind of rough around the edges and scarier. And there's lots of precedent for that in other things. You know what? A couple of other... I'm sorry, I was not going to go this long, but stuff keeps coming to me that I really want to say, and more generalities, so I don't want to save them for Sunday. This felt like what Gotham should have been in every way. This is what Gotham thought it was. I'll even go that far in certain places in that series. And then it also feels like the movie that Schumacher wanted to make when he made Batman Forever that Warner's wouldn't let him make back then. And I mean that on a lot of different levels, because he wanted to do a year one type thing. There's a lot of Miller in this, and there's a lot of Miller and a lot of Batman stuff, but not Dark Knight Returns. I'm talking Year One Miller. I'm talking like encroaching on almost Sin City type stuff, and like Batman has some of the same sort of purple prose and stuff that Frank Miller's Batman would have, and all of that again integrated really well with all of the other different influences. But anyway, I'm sorry, what were you gonna say? You just said sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to finish that thought, and then I had other thoughts. But you were saying like imagine if something happened, and I can't remember what it was.
Well, I just said imagine if they put Claw Killing in the world.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Was that the thing?
And also, I like.
It would be hard to not just make it Arrow's Claw King again, but
yeah,
because that's how good that was. But
so I really like the Batman. I really like their Batman.
Oh, okay.
But I don't like his Bruce Wayne.
I think you might more as it goes, because, and I think there's a point to be made there, because his Bruce Wayne kind of doesn't exist, and I think that's kind of the point.
Yeah. And
I also think that you're going to appreciate this material more on a second viewing.
Yeah, me too. There's just not enough of him, and he's also just too, like, he every time there's a Bruce Wayne scene, he looks, like, so, like, disappointed or sad or whatever.
For good reason, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay,
and
but...
I don't like, the long hair.
But can you... Yeah, I mean, he's kind of emo Batman. I think there's good reasons for that. But let me ask you this. Did you feel like you got what you asked for in the video we made earlier in the day with Catwoman? Because all you asked for was that Catwoman got to do things, and she got to do things.
Yeah, I did. I really like Catwoman. I did. Well, I mean...
I like her a lot.
I was going to compare her to the Batman Returns Catwoman, but anything's better than that.
Bryce is right. I've seen the film also. Cap, did you feel the Bryce is right. Come on down. Did you feel the film was too long? I personally think it was, and it weighed the film down a bit for me. Like I said earlier, and I'm sorry, that was an earlier comment, so I sort of addressed this, but I was surprised that I didn't, but a lot of it was also I was so enraptured in that world that I kind of didn't want it to end. So some of that is just, I mean, there's a lot of variables when you see a movie, and some of it is preconceptions, and some of it is, of course, what you bring to it with your own background, and I was kind of there for it after the first 10 or 15 minutes, where I was just, like I said, I felt really engrossed in this world, and I was like, I don't want this to end. But I probably wouldn't have had that if it wasn't as tightly plotted as it was. It just is very deliberately paced, and I don't even think it's decompressed. I think it just takes its time, and everything moves really naturally. That's how I felt about it, and I totally understand anybody that didn't have that experience with it. And people thought Dark Knight was too long, and I didn't agree with that, but appreciate why people had that. Some of this is going to end up being a taste issue, but man, even if I did agree it was a little long in the tooth, you know what I really appreciated? Not ever one time feeling like a scene was missing. And that's rare these days. There's never a point where I was like, oh man, we're cutting stuff for time, and we're cutting stuff for pacing, and we're losing connective tissue that's really important. It's the antithesis of Power Rangers 2017. You didn't have any of that stuff. Chewbacca's lover, people felt that Man-Bat and Mr. Freeze couldn't exist in this world. Having seen it, are they right? No, I don't think so. I think they could.
Okay, if they did it right.
There's no reason you can't just keep peeling the curtain back. This is not that grounded Nolan thing. Just because we didn't go to any of that pseudoscience kind of stuff in this, I don't think means that it can't exist in this world. How many episodes of Batman Animated Series could you see if you missed like Man-Bat and Mr. Freeze and Ra's al Ghul and some of that kind of stuff, before you'd be kind of shocked that any of that stuff exists, right? Like, there are lots of comics and episodes of that show that that don't go to those places, but those things still can't exist in that world.
I don't know. I
You're not seeing it.
actually don't think so. I think if they do it right, Man-Bat and Mr. Freeze, I keep thinking Sub-Zero.
And we know Reeves wants to do Mr. Freeze. He's
Yeah.
name dropped that.
They could exist, but I disagree with you on Ra's al Ghul.
Well, that would, at the moment from what we just saw, I'd say that seems to be kind of pushing an envelope, but I do think Reeves could absolutely get us there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hold to that. I think anything that exists in comics can exist in this.
Well, okay.
That's how I feel about it. Bob the Hunt, $2 super chat. Is Eric gonna love this film? I don't know. I think he'll really like it. I'm not sure he'll like it as much as I did. Because, like I said, this was a thing I didn't realize I needed right now, and in some ways, I'm having a similar experience with it that I did with Batman Begins, where I'm just kind of trying to soak it up. Like I don't know. This is gonna sound kind of weird, kind of silly, but like it's. I'm feeling things I can't describe right now. Like I definitely had an experience with this one, and it was one of the better viewing experiences I've had in a while. It was a really good crowd that wasn't noisy and obnoxious, and nobody felt the need to applaud at the end and all of that. Even though it was a day early, it was just nice to watch with a lot of attentive people that seemed to be having a good time, but we're also just watching a movie.
Well, and I kept thinking throughout the movie that it was just Arkham.
Frame by frame illusions. Hopefully this isn't giving too much away, but I will go ahead and read this. Hey, Cap saw a preview on Tuesday and thoroughly enjoyed it. Did you think the climax was too big for a smaller Batman story than we usually get? I'm a little on the fence about that, I suppose. All roads by the end do seem to be leading where they're going. I think that like all the legwork is done to get us to that place. But it is a bigger climax than I was expecting, certainly. I'll also say that the Begins parallels, including with the kind of larger climax, boy, I hope I'm not giving away too much saying that, but it is it's not a small story by the end, certainly. But there are lots and lots of parallels to be made with Begins. Like, in a lot of ways, it feels like a completely different thing. And then walking out, I just found myself going like, oh, and then this was also kind of like that. But it's weird, all the things that I was seeing in this. I won't give away what until Sunday. There's even a really subtle 66 Batman thing that I was kind of shocked was there by the end, and I don't mean like props in the background and stuff. There's a little bit of that with different things in this movie too, but Unknown Passenger Colin Farrell was so interesting to watch. Yes, and disappeared, and I could not tell it was him, and I loved that about it. I was surprised that you didn't say Penguin was your favorite part, because you looked over at me halfway through with one of his bigger scenes, and you said, okay, this guy does indeed deserve a TV show.
Yeah.
Because he's apparently getting a TV show. Frame by frame illusions didn't mean to possibly give anything away. Sorry. Yeah, hopefully that wasn't a huge spoiler. But anyway, let's go ahead and end things now. I'm incapable of going as short as I mean to. I may change this to say minor spoilers in the title. But my apologies to anybody with that. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this movie as much as I did, and interested to talk about it with you guys on Sunday. And Jayson, you have anything else you want to mention real quick before we go?
Well, I did just want to say,
yeah.
When it was not depressing, it felt like a video game. Like, it felt like an Arkham game.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned Arkham, but that's one of the major influences, absolutely. In all the right ways, I think.
Yeah. And you mentioned, the Choose Your Own Adventure games.
There's a lot of Telltale in this, too.
Yeah.
John Ty, Cap, are you more excited for the GCPD show and Penguin show for this universe coming to HBO Max? Both equally at this point, I think. Those both seem like good ideas.
I think I am more excited for the GCPD show. Because I just want to see what that would be like.
Yeah.
Unless it's just too rough for me. I don't know.
Well, anyway, folks, thanks again for watching. We sure appreciate it. And I'll be back again on Sunday with Kareem and DJ, I think, to talk about this movie at length. And tomorrow night, we're going to do a Captain Logan show, and we're going to not talk about this at all because I don't want to spoil things for people. And we're going to talk some interesting MCU and Disney Plus developments. So anyway, thanks a bunch once again, and we'll see you again real soon. Jayson, thanks for staying up late with me and watching the movie and talking about it.
Yeah.
Later, folks.